Ladies and gentlemen, America is going through a serious population decline. So the question is, can America cope with demographic decline? And you see what's happening, right? Out here. I think we know what the answer is, but I'm going to go ahead and play part of this audio. The audio is like 36 minutes long. I'm not going to play that much of it, and then I'll come back.
The formula by which the U.S. ascended to its current status of the world's wealthiest society and sole superpower was predicated on over 2 centuries of continuous and exceptional population growth, unique among Western countries in tempo and scale. Today, America's population is 2.5 times larger than on the eve of World War II, 1940, 3.5 times larger than in the lead up to World War I, 1910, 10 times larger than just before the Civil War, 1860, and 300 million persons more populous than that antebellum nation. But that old familiar formula is in trouble today. It is no longer clear that the U.S. can count on indefinite geometric population growth to power its way into the future. Sooner or later, continuing American population growth of any kind may not be in the cards either. As the figures come in for 2020 and 2021, it is likely that the U.S. will see its slowest years of demographic growth ever officially recorded. But this is an aberrant blip, a demographic shock from the terrible COVID pandemic, which caused deaths to spike and also temporarily depressed birth rates. Far more important for America's population prospects are long-term trends in fertility, since births to date have accounted for the overwhelming majority of new entrants into our population each year, America's famously robust immigration patterns notwithstanding. Over the past decade and more, since the crash of 2008 and the Great Recession, really, America's birth trends have taken a fateful turn, veering well below the replacement level. That regimen, if continued indefinitely, would eventually lead to a peaking of population followed by indefinite population decline, barring only offsetting immigration. America has experienced subreplacement fertility before for a number of years during the Great Depression, then again for most of the 70s and the 80s. But U.S. fertility levels have never before fallen as low as they are today. In 2019, before the coronavirus pandemic, America's total fertility rate, TFR, a measure of births per woman per lifetime, was 1.71, roughly 18% lower than the roughly 2.1 births per woman required for long-term population stability. By then, U.S. fertility levels were so low that even Mormon Utah had gone sub-replacement. And U.S. fertility levels were even lower in 2020. With a TFR of 1.64, America was well over 20% below replacement. Initial reports for the first quarter of 2021, furthermore, indicate that the U.S. general fertility rate, a measure similar to TFR, but simpler and thus easier to calculate immediately, was about 5% lower than the previous years. Some post-pandemic rebound may be expected, of course. But fertility forecasts are notoriously unreliable, since demographers lack any robust and accurate methods for anticipating future childbearing. And there are reasons to suspect that U.S. fertility could actually decline even further in the years ahead. The 2010s saw the second slowest pace of population growth in U.S. history, fractionally faster than for the Depression decade of the 1930s, but it is quite possible that the U.S. will come yet closer to zero population growth in the 2020s and beyond. And the nearest thing to demographic certainty in U.S. population projections is that our population will age markedly in the decades ahead. The senior citizens of 2050, after all, are already alive. Over the coming 3 decades, by the Census Bureau's reckoning in its main series projections, America's 65-plus population will grow much faster than its younger age groups and in fact would account for over half of the country's total population growth between now and then. By comparison with most other rich democracies, or leading would-be geopolitical rivals, America's demographic fundamentals remain favorable. Just before COVID 2019, America's low fertility level was significantly higher than the rate in Russia, 1.50 births per woman, or the EU 27, 1.53, to say nothing of Japan, 1.36, and China. Accurate figures for 2019 are still lacking, but it was down to 1.3 in 2020 by official reports, notwithstanding Beijing's official shelving of its notorious one-child policy at the end of 2015. Working age manpower, ages 20 to 64, continues to grow in the United States, while it has been falling for years in Russia, the European Union, Japan, and China. In contrast to America's slow but continuing demographic growth, population is already in decline in Japan and Russia. The EU projects its depopulation will begin in 2027, and China's could commence even sooner. Furthermore, the US is by key measures a more youthful society than any of these competitors, and is on track to age more slowly than they will over the decades ahead, except possibly Russia, where old people do not seem to last so long. Yet gazing at ourselves in a mirror framed by countries in more advanced stages of demographic decline should afford only a modicum of comfort. If we look at our own circumstances plainly, we should recognize that we are not nearly prepared to capitalize on the opportunities for material advance that could await a society such as ours. A rich but aging population with weak, still decelerating demographic growth, the latter increasingly due to immigration. For a stationary or shrinking population with high incomes, long lives, and small families, the path to continuing enrichment entails advances in research and knowledge creation, deepening of human capital, and an auspicious business climate, with incessant innovation in the business sector, labor markets, and the policy realm. These desiderata could generate new human potential and assiduously unlock its economic value, even as a society gets grayer and smaller. Healthy aging and a live longer, work longer principle would figure prominently in productivity gains in such a world, as would improvements in general education and skills, more business and labor market dynamism, and increased budget discipline. Ongoing social policy reforms would also surely figure prominently in the scheme. But while maintaining and increasing prosperity in an aging and shrinking society is certainly possible, it is by no means guaranteed. Decades of accumulating social and political dysfunction have left America less favorably poised for, and perhaps also less capable of seizing, the advantages of the new demographic era ahead of us than we were a generation ago, when
That's true. And right now, I mean, let's be real. America ain't coping with too much of anything these days. We look at a country that has zero chance of rebounding. You're looking at so many things happening simultaneously out here. And the demographic change have been in the making for a long, long time. I mean, they're already telling you among children, there are more black and brown children right now, today, than before, ever before. And now you have their last and final largest population, which are the baby boomers. And many of them are running from the job market. Many of them are retiring. This place is not ever going back. And this is just more evidence of that right there, of everything you just heard. This place is never going back. But y'all, please tell me what you think. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.